It's lovely to be here, and an early Shana Tova. It's really early. So this is a very meaningful time of year for me. I'm going to share my screen. You've heard a little bit about my background, in addition to all the other important dates now. Hold on, just want to make sure. You see me? Okay, you see the screen? So in addition to Rosh Hashanah, it's always a time for me to think about my parents, because they were married 66 years ago on September 11th, 1955 in Calcutta. Here they are. And so since Rosh Hashanah for me is not only a time to be in the synagogue, but also a time to be with family, I'm just going to start a little bit in the family vein. So my parents celebrated their first anniversary on Rosh Hashanah with this beautiful set of Noritake china that we continued to use for many years in my family. In 1964, we all emigrated as a family to the United States, and I grew up in Philadelphia. So many years later, here are my two sisters and me with my father, who passed away last July, a year ago. So all the programs I've been doing this past year have also been in his memory. He was a great influence on me and many other people. So when I was in Philadelphia growing up, we were a little oasis of Sephardic Jewish Indian culture amidst all the Ashkenazim around us, no offense. And I'm using Sephardic as the minhag, as a custom, either Ashkenazic or Sephardic minhag, not necessarily about Jews from Spain and Portugal and so on. So we always considered ourselves Sephardim as well. So we always strictly followed many customs from India and Baghdad. And one custom that I always loved was called the Seder Yehi Ratzone. So this Seder is not on Pesach, it's not on Tu B'Shvat, it's on Rosh Hashanah. And it's a very old tradition that actually dates to Talmudic times. In the Talmud, Horayot, page 12a, if you want to go and look it up, Rabbi Abaye suggested that people should eat the following foods that grow abundantly, and so they symbolize prosperity. And those foods are pumpkin, rubia, which is a bean, leeks, beets, and dates. So it's not a long Seder like on Pesach, and it's really a lot of fun. So I want to share that with you today because we really don't have a lot of home rituals on Rosh Hashanah. And I think it's a wonderful thing to do. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, you can still do it. So we have apples and pomegranates and dates and figs and beans, pumpkin or gourd, spinach or beetroot leaves, chives, and a head of something, maybe lettuce, maybe cauliflower. Originally it was like a sheep's head, but I don't do that anymore. So these are symbols of our wishes for the new year. And in fact, in Hebrew, they are called simanim, signs or symbols. So the Seder is a joyous and optimistic ritual filled with wishes and blessings, food and faith and fun, and many opportunities for learning, creativity, and experiential education. So most rituals for Rosh Hashanah, like Tashlich, have a sort of like, I can do better theme. And outside of apples and honey, as I said, there are a few family home traditions in the Ashkenazic tradition. So that's why I encourage this Seder Yehi Ratzone, because it really is very resonant. And especially in the year of COVID, last year, the Seder became something very popular that people incorporated into their home rituals. There are also very powerful themes that are embedded in the Seder if you unpack it, as we'll do as we go along. For me, it's a tradition that spans generations. Here is my grandfather in Calcutta at the table leading the Seder. And he would have used this sheet that was printed in Calcutta over 100 years ago that we used in our family. These are the different simanim and the blessings, the wishes that go with them. And you know that Seder means order, right? So they were printed in a specific order, but somebody in my family didn't like that order. So they decided to type in a different order. And that's what families do. They just, take rituals and make them their own. So nothing is set in stone. It's a minhag, it's a custom. And I love this custom so much that I actually wrote a book based on it called Apples and Pomegranates, a Family Seder for Rosh Hashanah. And it has an English translation and transliteration, activities, preparation tips, recipe songs, information, stories, and it's still available on my website. So this Seder was featured on a program called Modern Jewish Mom, which played on the Jewish channel a few years ago, and you can still find it on YouTube. So I've made some screenshots from it for this program. So the first thing that we're going to do is gather a shopping list and buy all the foods for the Seder. If we were in India, we would go to a market like this. Maybe you'll go to Trader Joe's or to Whole Foods or to your local Middle Eastern shop or your local Indian shop. And then we're going to go into the kitchen to prepare the food, which is at least half the fun. So in my family, we've chosen to keep the foods simple, starring as themselves, though if you wanted, instead of just to steam spinach, you wanted to make into a spinach quiche, go ahead and enjoy yourself. So the table is set beautifully and everyone is gathered around. This is a picture of my family from a few years ago. You can see my hair is a little different. And at this point, I want to share one of the most powerful memories of my father that I have. Our Seder starts with a mystical tradition. So he would recite a series of verses. It's biblical verses that have to do with blessing, wholeness, light, and prosperity. And each one was recited a different number of times. You can see 10 times, 12 times, 17 times. We could digress on why those numbers were chosen. Could be 10 for the 10 commandments, 12 for the 12 tribes, 17 for the numerical value of the word tov, which means good. I don't know. Those are just suggestions. But we all used to count on our fingers. I don't know how. He also counted on his fingers like behind his back, so he didn't lose track. And the last verse, if you can see on the bottom, is Va'amartem kol echai ve'ata shalom uveitcha shalom v'chol asher lecha shalom. And this comes from the book of Samuel, from 1 Samuel. And the translation is really very interesting because Ve'ata shalom, it doesn't say you shall have peace, you will have peace. It really means you are peace. Your home is peace. Everything you have is peace. And I so love that embodiment of, value or a wish that we want that is, just becomes who we are. So he would say this verse, my father would say this verse, Ve'ata shalom uveitcha shalom. V'chol asher lecha shalom. Here he is. And he would have the Kiddush cup. And then he would change the key slightly and he would sing, Tachel shana uvirchoteha. Let the new year begin with its blessings. And these words are taken from a long piyut, a liturgical poem that introduces the Rosh Hashanah evening service, the Arbit service. This piyut is found in many machzorim for Rosh Hashanah according to the Sephardic tradition. This particular one is printed in Baghdad in 1935. And it was written by Abraham Hazan Gerondi. It has many verses. And the name of the piyut is Achot Kitana, from the first two words of the piyut, referring to Israel as a young daughter who prays to God to heal her sorrows. And each verse ends, Tichle shana v'kileloteha. May the year end with all its curses. And particularly in COVID times, this is very resonant to me. And then the very last verse changes. So there are all these verses that say, may the year end with its curses. And then the very last verse is, may the year begin with its blessings. And I love that transformation of, negative to positive. I think that's a really, really wonderful way for us to think about the year coming up with all that we've been through. So now I'm going to again make it a little or a lot personal because, as I said, Jewish holidays are really about family. And this custom of announcing the new year was an intimate moment in my family because the way that my father announced it was very dramatic. His whole tone would change. His focus went from the verses he was reciting, and it kind of like transformed into the sound of a shofar announcing, Tachel Shana Uvirchoteha. Let the new year begin with all its blessings. And there was so much depth that he didn't put into the words that just came through his psyche. It flowed through him. And I think that that's an example that we can follow when we lead prayer and when we participate in prayer as well. So, Ve'ata shalom uveitcha shalom, v'chol asher lecha shalom, tachel shana uvirchoteha. You shall be peace, your family shall be peace, and everything you have shall be peace. Let the new year begin with all its blessings. So all this is a preamble. Then we would do Kiddush, and then we would have the Seder. So we're going to start with the actual Seder now. The first food that we have in the Seder are dates. And before we eat each food, we recite a wish that's specific to it. And each begins, Yehi Ratzone, may it be your will, God. We ask to be God's partners. And the wish comes from a characteristic of the food or a word play, which sounds like the name of the food. So definitely only buy medjool dates if you can. They're the juiciest, plumpest kind of dates. What we do is we stuff them with walnuts, Middle Eastern style, and that cuts a little bit of the sweetness. And you can't see the walnut inside, so it's just like you bury a little treasure in there, and that represents the sweetness of life, that you always find little treasures everywhere. So the traditional blessing is based on the Hebrew word for date, which is tamar. So the Yehi Ratzone wish doesn't really have anything to do with a date, but it's a word that sounds like tamar. Here we are putting the walnuts inside the dates, and this is a page taken from my book. So you can see that it's a wish for peace, and it has the word yitamu. So that's the word play on tamar. It becomes sheyitamu oivenu, meaning something will end, enmity will end, hatred will end. And so I've turned it into a positive wish for peace. So you can go through the Seder in 10 minutes if you like, or you can extend the discussion if you want. You can talk about how can you turn a wish into action? What can you do to bring peace to your own family, to your community, to the world? You can dedicate each day of the week before Rosh Hashanah to a different food. Well, we're a little, it's almost time for Rosh Hashanah, so I'm not sure, but you could still do it in the next couple of days. And talk about its symbolism and story. For instance, for dates, for Tamarim, there's of course a story of a woman judge, Dvorah, who sat under the palm tree, where of course dates grow. And you can retell the story as I've done in the book, emphasizing the palm tree as a symbol of strength and grace. And people called the tree by her name, Tomer Dvorah, because she was as strong and upright and beautiful as the tree. So you can take this traditional blessing, or you can make up your own wishes. For instance, you could think about what are the different meanings of the word date? A date is a number on the calendar, or it's when you go out with somebody you like. So then we could make these wishes. Let's date the new year with sweetness. From this date on, I will be kind to my family, to my brothers and sisters. So I hope the wheels are already turning and you're thinking about your own wishes for this particular siman. So I'll just read it, and you can read it if you like, since you're all on mute. You can read it at home. So we'll say the Hebrew together. Yehi Ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu sheyutamu oivenu v'son'enu v'chol mevakshei ra'atenu. May it be your will, God, that all enmity will end. As we eat this date, may we date this new year with happiness, blessing, and peace for all. And then we just say the bracha because it's a fruit that grows on a tree, borei pri ha'etz. Okay, so now we're going to our next siman, which is the pomegranate. And this is just such a beautiful, gorgeous fruit. It's got this gorgeous scarlet color and of course the crown on the top. No wonder that we call the bells that we put on the Torah rimonim, which actually are shaped like fruit, like pomegranates. And then another example of a treasure inside because it's got an unimaginable amount of seeds. Actually, the rabbis could imagine it, and they decided that there were 613 seeds in a pomegranate, one for each positive mitzvah. So being a journalist, I always have to have the facts. So I decided that there couldn't possibly be that many seeds in a pomegranate. So I actually bought a couple and I decided to count them. So what do you think I got from my first pomegranate? I got not 613, but very, very close. I got 612 seeds. So I think probably one just rolled away, or not being a mathematician, maybe I counted wrong. But you can see that the rabbis were very, very close. And even a smaller pomegranate that I had, I ended up with 550 seeds. So it's really amazing. And I just really love that symbolism of the pomegranate. So we wish that our years should be as filled with mitzvot, as filled with good deeds, as the pomegranate is filled with seeds. So you know that there are different kinds of mitzvot. There are ritual kinds of mitzvot, lighting candles, listening to the sound of the shofar, saying blessings. And then there are other relationship mitzvot, loving, caring for one another, honoring our parents, visiting the sick, being fair. So all those are different types of mitzvot that the seeds of the pomegranate symbolize. So let's say the wish for the pomegranate. Yehi Ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu shenihyeh meleim mitzvot karimon. May we be as full of good deeds as the pomegranate is full of seeds. So we're going to go on to the next siman, which is apple. And you're probably all familiar with apples from your own Rosh Hashanah observance. We don't just have a plain apple or dip it into honey. We make a sort of sweet, spicy apple preserve. And you can do this very simply. You cut the apple up into eighths, cook it on the top of the stove. Before you do that, you stick a clove in some of the pieces, so that gives it a little spiciness, a little rose water to give it fragrance. And the apples have to get soft, but they keep their shape. Some people also like to use quince instead of apples. And so it ends up looking like this. It's really very, very delicious. And so our wish is Yehi Ratzon milfanecha, a wish for sweetness. You could all say it together with me. Yehi Ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu, shetechadesh aleinu, shana tova umtuka kadvash, mereshit hashana, ve'ad acharit hashana. May it be your will, God, to renew for us a year as good and sweet as honey, from the beginning of the year all the way to its end. So since we've already said the blessing for fruit that grows on trees, borei pri ha'etz, we can eat the apple without another bracha. So that's traditionally the end of the sweet things. My father would save a little bit of the date or the apple for after some of the vegetables that he didn't care for, like spinach, and I followed his example because I don't like scallions or oniony things. So I would always save like some dates or some apples for afterwards. But it's very realistic because in life, we don't just have sweet things, we also have pungent things, and life is, bittersweet. So I don't know if you've ever seen beans like this. They are called lubia. You can get them in a Chinese shop or an Asian grocery or an Indian shop. These are called long beans, and the longer the bean, the better. They have more beans, more seeds inside to symbolize more of our wishes. The old word for beans was rubia. So the wish is for prosperity. The play on the words is sheyirbu zechuyotenu, that our merits increase. So yirbu means increase. It sounds like the word rubia, and you can think of it as a wish for prosperity, but not prosperity in the way of having a lot of things. The wish is really for the good things that we do to increase. Even if we have a lot of good things for ourselves, we can still remember others who don't have so many good things. And the more appreciation for what you have in your life, the more prosperity will flow to you. Zechuyot also means doing things that you earn through what you do and how you behave. Because we're really not just doing, these aren't like New Year's resolutions. That's not what these are. They are really setting intentions for the year, which is much, much stronger than a resolution. And we ask God's help in doing so. So this is a wish to really increase our ability to do that, to increase our ability to do mitzvot, to treat people well, and to do it with intentionality. So let's say this wish together, a wish for prosperity. Yehi Ratzon milpanecha, Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu. You could add ve'imotenu, our fathers and our mothers. Sheyirbu zechuyotenu. May it be your will, God, that our merits increase. And now, since we're eating a vegetable that grows from the earth, we can say borei pri ha'adama instead of borei pri ha'etz. So the next siman is a gourd. And in my family now, we use pumpkin that we get in the United States. This is an Indian gourd. Any gourd is just a fruit with a hard shell that grows in different sizes and shapes and colors. So here in the United States, I've decided that I really like pumpkin pie. So I'm going to use pumpkin and make a kind of pumpkin pie without the eggs and the pie crust. And so that's what I do. And pumpkin or gourd in Hebrew is called kara. And so it's a wish for happiness. Kara sounds like the word from tear, shetikra roa gezar dinenu, that we want God to tear away all evil decrees against us. As our merits are proclaimed, that's a different ve'yikaru lefanecha zechuyotenu. There are two word plays here. So Rabbi David DeSolopul, who edited a wonderful Sephardic Siddur, really went to town on using puns in this blessing. And he wrote, "Guard us, God, as we eat of this gourd, if enemies gird at us in the year to come." So I really enjoy that. And in Hebrew, it's Yehi Ratzone milpanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu, shetikra roa gezar dinenu, v'yikar'u lefanecha zechuyotenu. So at this point, I just like to take a little break from talking for a little singing, which is a passion of mine. On the first night of Rosh Hashanah, we have another special piyut that we sing at home and in the synagogue. It's called Chon Tachon, and we ask God to have mercy on us and seal us in God's heart. So I'm putting it here because it has the word Yikaru in this piyut as well. And so I thought it was appropriate. So this is from my CD, and I hope that you enjoy it. Where'd it go? Sorry, I didn't put the second two verses on there, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. That was my friend Alan Eni, who's also from Baghdadi background, singing with me. So the next siman is a beetroot, a wish for freedom. In our family, we do use spinach, which are like beetroot leaves. And in Hebrew, the word is selek. It sounds like the word yistalku, which means to beat, a retreat, to let go, to give up. And the wish is asking for any enemies we have to give up and retreat so that we can live in freedom. There have been many, many times in history where this wish would have been especially resonant and relevant today as well. Any time of anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, the Farhud in Iraq, pogroms in Russia, the Inquisition in Spain, anti-Zionism, times of racism and divisiveness, and today, of course, COVID. So this could be a time where you think about the freedoms that we especially treasure and enjoy. So let's all say this blessing together. Yehi Ratzon milpanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu, sheyistalku oivenu v'son'enu v'chol mevakshei ra'atenu. May it be your will, God, that all the enemies who might beat us will beat a retreat, and we will beat a path to freedom. And here is Rabbi DeSolopul's wish. As we bite this beat, may those who in the past have beaten us or sought us harm beat to cover in the coming year. So my least favorite siman, chives or scallions or whatever oniony thing you want to eat. It just, again, shows that life is bittersweet. It sounds like the word, it's yikartu, and in Hebrew, the word for this oniony family is karti. So it means cut off, and the wish is that our enemies should be cut off. In a positive way, it's a wish for friendship. So we'll do it in English. May it be your will, God, that our enemies be cut off. Without enemies, we hope for the blessing of friendship. And Rabbi DeSolopul, like we eat this leek, may our luck never lack in the year to come. So turning negativity into positivity reminds me of the story in the Bible about Balak, the king of Moab, who saw the strong band of Israelites approaching this country on his way from Egypt to the land of Canaan, to the land of Israel. And he feared for his country and his people, and he decided to call a very powerful wizard named Bilam to curse the Israelites so that they would lose in battle. But God put words into Bilam's mouth, and when he began to speak, blessings spilled out instead. So this is a classic example of curses being turned into blessings. And we still say one of the most famous lines every day when we begin our services in synagogue. And so you can also incorporate this into your Rosh Hashanah Seder. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Our last siman is a head of something, as I said, a head of lettuce or a head of cauliflower. It's a wish for leadership. Some people use a fish head. Fish in Hebrew is dag. And so the Baghdadi-Jews decided that it's too similar to the word de'aga, which is worry. And that wasn't a good sign. So instead, in the old days in India, they used something euphemistically called sweetbreads, which is actually a delicacy, grains from a sheep, but vegetarian and everybody else can use a head of some vegetable to symbolize that we want to be heads and not tails, leaders and not followers. Of course, Rosh means head, and that is a home to all our senses that we can use to guide us in the year ahead. Let's say the bracha, the blessing, Yehi Ratzon, milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu, velohe avotenu, veimotenu, shenihye lerosh, velo lezanav. May it be your will, God, that we will be heads and not tails, leaders instead of followers. So that's really the end of the traditional Seder. These are the original foods that the rabbi suggested. When I do this Rosh Hashanah Seder with kids, I often make a list of fruits and vegetables, and I ask them to make up their own funny blessings. So for instance, you could put an olive on the table. Olives are a symbol of peace. So you could say, may we all live together peacefully. So if you like, you can take the time. I know you don't want to put a lot of stuff in the chat, but if anybody is inspired, you can look at the list or come up with your own fruits and vegetables and put your wishes in the chat. So when our Seder is over, we say motzi, we do the motzi. We don't use anything sour or lemony on Rosh Hashanah. So instead of dipping our motzi into salt, we substitute sugar, and we keep that sugar on the table for meals throughout all the chagim. Probably it was supposed to end on Rosh Hashanah, but we extended it to all the chagim. So, and then we would say kiddush, And we'd have a fabulous meal in India. This is a cover from my cousin Mavis's cookbook called Indian Jewish Cooking. But you can see the traditional foods, the aloo makallas, which are triple fried potatoes. Of course, that's the first thing that I told you, even though, the main meal was chicken, and palau, rice with kishmish badam, which is really like Russian kiss mit mandlin, sauteed almonds and raisins, and then mahashas, which are stuffed vegetables like tomatoes and zucchini and eggplant and onions stuffed with rice and minced chicken, but you could also make it vegetarian. So this was our meal on the holidays. So I can stop now if anybody has any questions, and then we can. I have a few other customs that I can share with you before we end the program.
I think there are a few questions. Would you unshare
Okay,
this?
so I'm going to
maybe
stop
unshare?
share.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So here's some questions. I think it was Randy asked, is there a Seder plate that you actually use? Just like we have a Seder plate for Pesach, is there a Seder plate for this Seder?
Actually not, and we don't even have a Seder plate for Pesach. We just have a big tray, and we put all the different simanim or on Pesach. They're just in small little bowls. That's what we do.
Rosa wants to know, do you do the Seder only on the first night, or do you do it also on the second night?
That's a good question. Originally, it was just supposed to be on the first night, but again, it's just a custom. So we decided that we liked it so much, we do it on those nights.
So if you look around the room, it looks like a lot of Ashkenazim here. I'm interested if anybody actually has done the Seder before, because you're Sephardi, please chat us so I can see if we have, maybe the Sephardim, like we do all the time, we don't need to come to the program. So it's just Ashkenazim here. But we, from the Ashkenazi world, we basically do a few things. We have the apples dipped in honey. We have the pomegranates. Did we steal those from the Seder? Or did we develop them independently and we just, Ashkenazim just don't even know about the Seder in general, the Yehi Ratzone?
I think that I haven't heard about pomegranates being in an Ashkenazi tradition. Maybe they are. When I grew up, I had just heard about apples and honey. I heard about carrots being like coins, coins for prosperity. But I don't think that it was incorporated as an official ritual. Like you dip the apples in the honey or you eat the pomegranates, but I don't think that the associated wishes and the whole ritual around it was something that was common in Ashkenazi communities. But it's not just a Baghdadi custom, it's all Sephardic communities have this.
Yeah, but this is a very, how old is this? How many, how?
Oh, well, it stretches back to Talmudic times.
Right.
So that's where the original idea came from. It's not something that we invented, as we were in the diaspora, but it definitely, expanded into something.
Right. So Phyllis says, yes, the Ashkenazim, what we have is simmus, which I actually enjoy. And I made my mom simmus this year because I can't go home to Boston. We've got simmus. Randy Harris said he did the scallions, green onions. And we have people who've done, apples with cardamom. We have some people who actually have done the Seder. Max, apparently. Is it someone referred to a Tripoli Libyan tradition? They make fried pancakes with leeks and spinach. So we all know this, Ashkenazim, that the Sephardim eat way better than we do and much more creatively do. But it really comes down to where they lived versus we lived. We lived in where you could lucky to get a potato, maybe a carrot, and the Sephardim had much more interesting things to eat. We assume the Sephardim also make round challahs. Is that correct?
No, actually.
No?
Have any kind of egg challah that as we know it, which is definitely one thing that I love about Ashkenazi food. We had large, like the big Iraqi pizza on afternoons. And then in the evenings, we would have 12 small oval shaped loaves of bread on any Erev Shabbat on any Friday night. So we didn't actually have any braided, yummy, doughy egg challah.
Okay. Well, one thing good for the Ashkenazis.
Yay!
So I want to make sure people know. I was actually looking on the internet. So people have been asking, how do we get this information? How do we get the recipes? I mean, and there's stuff in your book which they have to order, but they probably won't come in time for this year. So they can order it and read it over Rosh Hashanah, have it ready for next year. I was looking on the internet and I found actually people doing it, but it's a little different than yours. In other words, maybe a different order, and maybe so. Is there a set order? Like, did you go through a set order, or is the order kind of malleable?
As I said, it's a minhag, it's a custom. So it's one of those things where Seder means order, and you're as on that sheet of paper, it followed a certain order, but we changed the order. So in my book, I followed the order the way we did it in my family. I don't think anything's going to happen if you change the order. The only thing would be to make sure that if you're going to say the Borei Priya Eitz or Adama, that,
Right.
You're cognizant of that.
I think an important halachic thing that I've noticed that is done incorrectly, and I'll make sure people know here. You do this before you do Kiddush and Motzi, because if you do Kiddush and Motzi first, you've kind of obliterated. The Motzi takes away all the blessings. So you got to be very careful. When you do this at the beginning, and then you do Kiddush, then you do Motzi, right?
That is correct, because if once you say Motzi, it's a blanket thing, and until Birkat HaMazon. So if you say Birkat HaMazon, then you can start saying more blessings again, right? So that interim between Motzi and Birkat HaMazon, you can't add any other blessings.
So if you're not going to do this, but you're going to do the traditional apples dipped in honey, you really have to do it after the Kiddush before Motzi. Because you can't do the blessing after the Motzi. And I've told people this, they don't listen to me. So just make sure you do it right, Harris and Jan.
Right.
Bless the apples and the honey after Kiddush before Motzi. And if you want to do all this, the same as well. People want to know, Rahel, how to get this book, how to get your CD, and they want the name of the cookbook that you mentioned.
Okay, everything is on my website, which is called www.explorejewishindia.com. Are you putting it in the chat, or shall I try to do that? Ari?
Yeah, well, you can, you're welcome to do it.
Okay, so it is in the shop on my website, and I will.
You can put it in there while I answer Linda. Linda Jimenez asked, do we know Tegelach? Well, I definitely know Tegelach because I grew up with Tegelach. My grandmother's the only one. My grandmother, Granny Leah, passed away at age 90 something, had the secret recipe and didn't teach anybody. So now I can't get good Tegelach anymore. I get the stuff that you can get here or there, but nothing like my grandmother made with the syrup and the ginger. And I assume Tegelach is not Sephardi. I assume that's
no, it's not Sephardi, but my mother used to make something called mamo, which is, they're like butter, but not butter, you wouldn't use butter, but some very soft, crumbly dough, and you stuff it with either dates, or my favorite was with crushed pistachios. And oh my God, it's a lot of work, but it's really yummy. So everything is on the website. That reminded me of my cousin's cookbook is also on the website, Indian Jewish Cooking, and my CD, which is called Hodu, Jewish Rhythms from Baghdad to India, and the Seder book.
Great. Susan Phillips says that she's definitely Ashkenazi, but they learned about the Seder 20 years ago and have done it ever since. So I think, like our Judaism is about stealing from things around us and making it Jewish. So why can't we steal from ourselves, right? Why can't the Ashkenazim take the good stuff from the Sephardim and vice versa? We'll give you challah. We'll give you.
I have challah.
We'll give you.
I have to make it this weekend because
we'll give you potato kugel.
But I do make the challah with a little Sephardic twist, and that's I learned this from my mother. I put kalunji in them in the dough, and kalunji are black nigella seeds. So they look like poppy seeds, but it has a very distinctive flavor, and that's the little twist on challah. My mother is here somewhere, so thank you. Yeah.
Great. I'm just looking through. There's so many comments. People are like, I think they're starting to share recipes with me. I think that we should just have Rahel come out here and do this for us sometime. But it's hard. You'll be away from your family. What a great thing. But we really can't do anything in person this year indoors. Are you doing Rosh Hashanah with a family this year? Are you doing indoors, outdoors? What are you doing?
We just had this discussion with my daughter, who has a 3-month-old little baby. So we're going to be outdoors, and my niece and nephew and their 2 kids are going to come. It's a reduced number of people, but we're happy that we have any family around at all.
So apparently, according to Susan Phillips, who sent me the link, there are Rosh Hashanah Seder plates. And Benny's Judaica sells a Rosh Hashanah Seder plate for $39.99. And it has it's like a Seder plate. I'll drop it in for everybody to see, because Susan had just dropped it in for me. But yes, I guess you can get that. Do you guys did your family wear any interesting outfits for Rosh Hashanah that would be specific for that part of the year that we wouldn't know about? Or did you just dress?
Yes, so I'm going to tell you a little secret about the Baghdadi-Jews. And that is, we dressed up to go to synagogue, and then we came home. We had special, like the men had special pajamas, like holiday or Shabbat pajamas. So they would change into their pajamas, and it's all about comfort, and I think that's great. So the Baghdadi Jews didn't really wear Indian clothing. We were very westernized in India as well. So we'd have new clothes as well, and the women might wear like a fancy kind of wrapper, fancy version of a house dress. But this plagued the Baghdadi Jews when they made Aliyah, but Jews from Baghdad, not just from India, when they made Aliyah, because they were pejoratively called pajama because of their tendency to wear pajamas at home.
Well, in my house, I'd be lucky if my children wear pajamas, because the 2 boys who are age 5 and 3 like to eat naked at the moment.
Okay.
So maybe pajamas will. If I get them some interesting outfits, it'll be better for all of us. We've tried to tell them.
I love that. Well, I guess you're going to have your Seder indoors then.
Yes, we'll have a small thing. I am going to try. I really think this is a great and meaningful way to make Rosh Hashanah meaningful for everybody. So I look forward to trying it out. I think I'll see what I can find on the internet. I found something that looked interesting, but they had the order wrong. They had Kiddush, Motzi, and then all the stuff. So I didn't like that. It does sound like the funny thing is, it sounds like it's such a new age tradition, and yet it's thousands of years old. So
isn't that the truth about so much of Judaism, though? Like this is just such an amazing, meaningful ritual that has endured over the centuries, and you can adapt it in any way that you want. So that's why I think it's fun, like if you're sitting around with your family, to come up with new fruits and vegetables, and to sit around and make funny puns and jokes about what kind of we could have.
Well, the challenge is on. We have a lot of people online. I look forward, if you can take a picture of yourself doing the Seder, send it to me. I want to see what you guys make this year. Okay, do you want to share a few more things before we end?
Sure, I will. Just tell me how much time. I'll go through it fast. Let's see.
Let's say 5 to 10 minutes max.
Okay. So I have to share my screen again, right? Yeah. Share. Okay, that's where I was.
There was a question whether you can get your book onto Kindle so people can try to download it. And
well, I'll tell you the truth. There is an e-version. I don't have it on my website, but there is, if you really want an e-version. Carben, who's a publisher, I think is selling that e-version. To me, it's not the same as having a book in your hand, but if you need it fast, you can.
Well, maybe they can get the e-version and then order the book, and they can have both.
Right. So, since we just had Slichot last week in Ashkenazic synagogues, in Sephardic communities, we don't just have Slichot one time. We have it the entire month of Elul. and the service started really, really, really early in the morning at 4 a.m. We also don't blow the shofar during Elul at Slichot. If you would come to our Slichot or Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur service, honestly, it's like going to a different country. A lot of times we say that if you walk into a synagogue anywhere in the world, you feel comfortable. But I have to tell you, the first time I came to Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur services in an Ashkenazic synagogue, I hadn't got a clue about what was going on. All the piyutim were different. All the poems were different. The basic structure, the Amidah and the Shema and all that is the same. But especially on the high holidays, it's really the amount of piyutim that are inserted, the amount of liturgical poems that are inserted really makes a difference. But the feeling is the same, appealing to God for mercy, invoking our ancestors. In our synagogues, honors are auctioned off each Shabbat each Shabbat for that day. But on the holidays, all the honors for the holidays are auctioned off for the first 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So that means that we didn't have like membership dues. And so the way the synagogue raised funds was to, people paid for their honors. So carrying the Torah, reading the special portions, went to the highest bidder. And that could take an hour each day. So then the Gabbai would keep track of who bid what with a system of notation that didn't require writing, and you would send in your money later. So the most important honor in Calcutta was the person who carried what was called Sefer Kol Nidrei, the first Sefer Torah to be taken out of the Heichal on Yom Kippur. Why was this such a big deal? Because each synagogue had about 75 or 80 Sifrei Torah, usually dedicated in memory of relatives. And during the year, the Sifrei Torah were used in rotation, and they were kept in not just in like I don't know what to call it, a cabinet, but it was an entire room that held all the Sifrei Torah. So the person who was the highest bidder got to choose which of the 80 Sfarim in the Heichal to carry, and it would be one that his family had dedicated, and he would recite Shehechianu. So in the Magen David synagogue that my father was the rabbi of, the wealthy and philanthropic Ezra family paid 1,000 rupees a year for this honor, equivalent in those days to $1,000. This is my father's shofar. And here is how it would have been blown at the Beit El Synagogue in Calcutta. The blasts are the same, except the tikiyah, which is 9 staccato blasts in the Ashkenazic tradition, is one long blast. And it's supposed to be a highly mystical feat to blow the shofar. And there's a special meditation, a special kavanah to increase concentration. And the words that you're supposed to recite actually say, Kara Satan, tear away Satan. And that's embedded in the text. At the time of the shofar blowing is apparently a very vulnerable time when Satan is lurking, looking to harm us. And so we do whatever we can to confuse Satan. And so instead of standing up when the shofar is blown, we actually sit down. So here is my sister Aliza blowing my father's shofar. I thought you might like to hear that. Thank you, Aliza. Just a couple more things. On the afternoon of Rosh Hashanah, a lot of people came over and they took turns reading from the book of Psalms. And usually it was the men. Meanwhile, the women peeled and cut and prepared fresh fruit, almonds, dried fruit. And when they finished the entire book of Psalms, the food was put out and blessings were recited. We'll jump ahead to Sukkot. This is a picture of our sukkah in Calcutta. It was built on the veranda, so you could see it from the street. It was decorated with little ornamental lights and fruits and vegetables, hanging glass lanterns of all colors, shiny papers of gold and silver and blue and red and silver called chun-chun that crinkled and sparkled in the breeze. And a lot of people came over to sing Pizmonim, to sing the liturgical songs, because there's the largest number of piyutim for Sukkot of any holiday in the year. So you can actually see my great uncle Elias, and he is wearing his pajamas. The frame of the sukkah stayed up all year long. And here they're a little bit more dressed up in the sukkah. So they would even decorate the sukkah with like pineapples and heavy things like that. And as the fruit ripened, they would just pull it off and eat it. So the people who came to visit were offered toasted salted almonds, pistachios, pine nuts. And when they left, we would sprinkle their hands with rose water from a special kumkum, from a special container, and they would recite a blessing. One of my favorite customs is that we decorate our lulavim with colorful silk ribbons. This is my father again. This is a form of hidur mitzvah, of beautifying the mitzvah. And also it's a really good way not to mix up your lulav with anybody else's. So I still do this. I have my ribbons I save from year to year and decorate the lulav with the ribbons. So to me, singing is also a form of hidur mitzvah. We didn't sing in harmony in Calcutta, but we all sang in unison. And it's hard to do that on Zoom, but hopefully we'll all have a chance to beautify our holidays with ribbons of song. So I want to just end with, I'll just sing a couple of verses. You guys can just sing at home. This is a song for Simchat Torah. It's an alphabetical acrostic with the different characteristics of God's personality, so to speak. And so the chorus is just hallelujah. It goes like, hallelujah, 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 Shem Adonai. Okay, and then we'll just try that together. I'll sing a little lower. Hallelujah, 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 Shem Adonai. And then the verses are, hallelujah, niradirim, baruchum holal Adonai. And the chorus, hallelujah, 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 Shem Adonai. And so it goes on with all the different letters of the alphabet. So I think I'll just stop my screen share there and say to all of you, Tizku l'shanim rabot. That is what we say instead of Chag Sameach or Shana Tova. It's an all-purpose greeting that we say on every holiday, Tizku l'shanim rabot. May you merit many years of blessing and goodness.
Thank you. I had two last questions for you. Thank you. Two last questions. One question people keep asking if on the Sephardi world there's tashlich. Is that a tradition in Sephardi world as well?
Yes, yes, there is.
And Rosa asks, she says she loves these older pictures, but are they resonant as to traditions today in the Sephardi world? So if you go into into shul, in a Sephardi shul today, will you see people, or in a certain time, or maybe it's a Mizrahi shul, will you see people decorating their lulavs the same way? Or is that not done anymore?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question exactly. It could have been a custom in my particular family. I don't know if it's something beyond my family. I haven't ever seen it anywhere else, but I definitely think it's something that's very beautiful. Hidur mitzvah is a wonderful concept, beautifying the mitzvot.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us to learn about a part of Judaism that many of us don't know. And now you do.
Thank you.
They have no excuse.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that Faith Hirschler has no excuse. I want to see her shopping at one of the interesting markets here and getting some good fruit for her table for Rosh Hashanah. And Ahuva, I wonder if you do it, Ahuva. You do all these. I don't know. Maybe you do it. You do it? Ahuva does it. She's so quiet. Ahuva, wishing you a happy new year. So looking forward to doing this at our house. What a great thing to do with kids in particular.
Thank you. And please sign up for my newsletter also on my website. So, I can keep you posted with when we start traveling back to India and whatever programs I do and my little messages and stuff and my articles in Hadassah magazine that I share on my newsletter. So
thank you. Thank you. I note that Annette says she's seen people with ribbons on lulavs at Spanish and Portuguese synagogue.
Yeah.
So we have some great traditions out there we don't know about because we're Ashkenaz-centric. But I promised Ahuva, and she didn't believe me years ago, that we would do programs about Sephardim and Mizrahi. And I think we've done pretty good, and particularly online. Because we can.
Where are you from, Ahuva? Where's Ahuva from?
Ahuva, unmute real quick, and you can say.
Oh.
Right now I'm in Israel, and I was born here.
But where's your family from?
From Yemen.
Very nice.
Yeah. So what a great, this makes me appreciate, this should make you appreciate the beauty of Judaism. We have amazing stuff that we don't even know about in our own tradition. So thank you for sharing, Rahel.
Thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful afternoon, and I wish you all safe year ahead, a healthy year ahead. Right now, that seems to be at the top of the list of wishes.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova, Skula Shanim Rabot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.